is no story quite like the story of Yakuza. And yeah, the stories in each of these quirky Japanese adventures are noteworthy in their own way, but I'm talking about the story beyond the screen. Yakuza is a series that has taken many different forms and originated from many different places, and it's had so many ups and downs, if it got turned into a roller coaster, it would probably kill you. And even though Yakuza has slowly made a name for itself with its unique Japanese brand of bizarre humor and total absurdity, beneath its goofy exterior is one of the most charming and heartwarming experiences in all of video games, all with some of the greatest characters ever created. Hi, my name is Wade RONSPIES, and welcome to All In. With Yakuza Like a Dragon now on PS5, nearly the entire franchise now on Xbox Game Pass and PC, and Judgment getting a next-gen remaster, I figured it was a great time to tell the world about the absolute joy that is Yakuza. Not that there's ever a bad time, though. I love this series, and if I can get even one person watching this to take the plunge and check out the bombastic and over-the-top combat mechanics, give karaoke a try, or soak in the unique aesthetics of Japan, well, mission complete. Those are all what make Yakuza great, but knowing the backstory behind it all will make you appreciate these games even more. Yakuza has lived most of its life shrouded in relative obscurity, so much so that Sega even considered ending all support for the franchise outside of Japan in the mid-2010s. But that wasn't even a thought when the series began life in 2005. And that age when open world games were still relatively new, Grand Theft Auto was king. And, I mean, it still is. But back in the Vice City and San Andreas era, all you had to do was say your game was like Grand Theft Auto, and it would probably get some eyes on it, which is exactly how Sega marketed Yakuza when it first came to the West. Yakuza has always been more of a beat-em-up with RPG elements than a traditional open-world game, but because it's set in a gritty city filled with crime, it created the opportunity to treat it like GTA, but Japan for Western audiences. The first game had a surprisingly big budget. It was the only game in the series to be dubbed in English for a long time, featuring the voice talents of Hollywood actors like Michael Madsen and Mark Hamill. And if Yakuza has always given you some slight Shenmue vibes, you're actually right to feel that way, because the team behind Yakuza was largely made up of Sega employees who created Shenmue, minus a few key figures like Yu Suzuki. But you also had developers from games like Super Monkey Ball, Virtua Fighter, Panzer Dragoon, and Jet Set Radio, which is probably why the series has so much variety and has almost become more known for its mini-games than the actual games themselves. It was a huge collaborative effort from employees from all over Sega. It's why the games have bowling, baseball, kart racing, arcade classics, disco, real-time strategy games, and, of course, the iconic karaoke that has gifted us many a meme in these past few years. However, the initial response to Yakuza was, well, it wasn't exactly doing GTA numbers. It was technically a commercial success and allowed Sega the opportunity to create sequels, but it didn't become a household name like I think Sega might have anticipated. Sega dialed back a lot, to the point where Yakuza was stripped of English voiceover altogether. Instead, Sega let its native Japanese voiceover shine with subtitles, which would be the case for every Yakuza game from then on until Judgment's release in 2019. Yakuza would continue to be a hit franchise in its home of Japan, but everywhere else, Sega was struggling. I think part of them still felt Yakuza could be the GTA of Japan, and tried to kind of Americanize Yakuza 3 and remove parts of the game that might confuse or bewilder Western players. But all that really did was confuse American players who wanted an authentic open-world experience in Japan. Sega would later release an uncompromised and upgraded version of Yakuza 3 for PS4, Xbox One, and PC, thankfully. Sega learned their lesson with Yakuza 4, which is honestly one of my favorites in the series, but Sega's woes were starting to catch up with them. They didn't really know what to do with Yakuza in the West. Yakuza 5 was actually withheld from international release until it was released as a digital-only title on PS3 in 2015, 2 years after the PS4 came out. It was kind of a death knell for fans. If it can't even get a physical release on a current-gen console, and if it takes 3 years just to localize these things, then what hope is there for future releases? this. But Sega saw something. At least they must have, considering they later announced not just Yakuza 0 for the West, but also Yakuza Kiwami and Yakuza 6. It was clear they wanted to give Yakuza one last big push in the West, but this was it. A prequel, a remake, and a sequel. If this doesn't get people in, then nothing will. And, well, it was the best decision they could have possibly made. A prequel was absolutely the best way to go. Anyone who was curious about Yakuza can now hop in, no strings attached. No numbers to worry about, just a clear beginning to the story that required no prior knowledge of any characters or plot lines. Yakuza 0 being arguably the best game in the series also definitely helped with the series' popularity, and that a remake of the first game was due for release later that same year. It was the perfect 1-2 punch, and it had the biggest returns for the series ever, catapulting Yakuza into fame and making it one of Sega's premier franchises. And then Yakuza 6 was right after that, featuring a beautiful brand new engine that took Yakuza to the next level, just as people were discovering the franchise for the first time. And then a remake of the second game followed using the brand new Dragon engine. And finally, we arrive at the latest two entries in the franchise, Judgment and Yakuza Like a Dragon. Both of these titles actually mark a huge shift in the series, with Like a Dragon completely changing things with a brand new cast of characters in a brand new place and becoming a turn-based RPG. It's a big turning point and a perfect entry for someone curious about the series who doesn't want to play everything from 0 to 6 just to get caught up. Like a Dragon also features an English voice dub, following the lead Judgment started. Judgment is technically a spin-off of Yakuza, but it takes place in the main city of the series and retains the action-based combat the series is known for. It's essentially a side story in the Yakuza universe and features detective-like mechanics as you unravel an intense mystery. Judgment initially released in 2019 only on PS4, but with the PS5 and Xbox Series X and S out in the world, Sega took the opportunity to essentially remaster the whole thing. It's not just a slightly updated version for new consoles. The team behind it really wanted this game to feel like a brand new PS5 and Series X game. So, in case I wasn't clear earlier, Judgment is no longer locked to the PS4. Just like how all of Yakuza is now on Xbox and PC, Judgment is coming to PS5, Series X and S, as well as Google Stadia. So if you're like me and you miss the action combat of Yakuza now that the series has shifted to an RPG, Judgment is here if you prefer that kind of experience. And that's Yakuza, a series I love that has gone from being in danger of discontinuation in the West to being a staple of Sega's library that has begun to branch off and become many different things. It's an uncompromising look at the goofy side of Japanese culture, but all with an unparalleled heart and soul, with some of the best stories and characters in the industry. It'll make you laugh, it'll make you cry, and it can do so within minutes of each other. And that's it from me. If you want to keep tabs on me, follow me on Twitter at WadeLikesPie, and you can subscribe to my YouTube channel called Input 1. I actually recently renamed my YouTube channel. I know I used to go by RONSPIES, but now it's Input 1. On that channel, you can actually find a big scene breakdown for one of my favorite moments in Yakuza 0, so check that out if you are so inclined. Anyway, thanks for watching, stay tuned, and Majima for life.